right, guys, welcome back to Harry Dating Combos, where we talk about love, dating, relationships, and everything else in between. I'm Harry Wilmington. Our guest today is Roy Biancalana. He is a certified relationship coach, a sought-after speaker, and the author of 4 books on love and self-awareness. His latest book is called Quantum Questions: How Answering 7 Radical Questions Leads to Attracting a Healthy, Lasting, Intimate Relationship. And this book challenges the way that we think about dating and finding love. And he's here to talk to us about it. So, Roy, welcome back to the show.
Great to be here, Harry. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, appreciate it. So like I told you in the email, I'm actually on your email list. And when I saw that you had a new book coming out and what it was about, I just found it very fascinating, just the direction you were going with the book. And I was like, I need to have him on the show to talk about it and let my listeners know this dynamic new way of thinking about getting into relationships. So before we get into that, you also mentioned that you just recently had your 17th anniversary for your wedding.
I did. Yes.
Excellent. Congratulations. Like, how was your relationship with your wife influenced the writing of this book?
My relationship with my wife is sort of an ongoing petri dish experiment for myself and, practicing conscious and mindful relationship principles. So, she is a joy, and the relationship is always a challenge. I just think relating in an honest, intimate way with another human being is probably the most difficult thing that we're ever asked to do in life or try to do in life. So it's just an ongoing challenge for me to check my ego at the door, to let go of wanting to be right, to, opening up to other people's perspectives, to living with someone who truly is so different from me, sees the world differently, responds differently, makes decisions differently. So it's just a challenge to live with someone who, there's that old book that was titled Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, like we're from 2 different planets. And there's some truth. There's some truth to that. And so learning to live with that and not just survive and not kill each other, but to thrive and to celebrate your differences. It's just an ongoing challenge that's usually, not always, but usually pretty fun.
Do you find that challenge gets like harder or easier as you go along, or do things just change up?
I think it gets easier only because I learn more and more about what it takes to make a relationship work. And because I get wiser, it gets easier. But what keeps it from being as easy maybe as it could be is that the ego just doesn't it doesn't matter what you know. The ego doesn't care what you know. It just wants to be right. It wants to be in control. It wants to have its way. If it wasn't for the sense of self, and relationships would be very easy. But I certainly learn more and more, and I see the truthfulness of a lot of the things that I teach my clients played out in my relationship with my wife. So in that regard, I think it's becoming easier.
I like what you said. That's so true about like because I try to tell people like we can know certain things like, oh, I should respond this way, or they have their best intentions when they're criticizing me, but just that ego part's always there to be like, but no, we got to fight this. And so it's always a battle of like your logical brain and your emotional ego side that wants to fight that.
Absolutely. That's my experience.
Now, also in the email, you said that you went through, I'm going to get this right, an 18-month meditative incubation period for this book. What exactly did that look like? And then how did that shape your book?
In my work now, about 20 years working with single people who want to attract a healthy relationship, what I've really seen is that people ask the wrong questions. A lot of times people come to a relationship coach like myself, and their questions they're good questions, they're valid questions, but I don't think they're the questions you should be asking. And those questions are anything from, where do I go to meet the kind of person that I would like to be with? And what online platform should I use to meet the kind of person I would like to be with? Or How do I get them to approach me in public? Or how do I approach them? Or how do I flirt? What do I say? Right. And so,
Like, process questions. Yeah.
yeah, it's more of like questions that are kind of in the moment about meeting someone. And I've just found that those are important questions, but they're not really the questions that people should be asking. And that's because most of us have a history where we've had some relationships, and they can be of various depth and various length. But we've had a history where our love lives haven't worked out that well.
Mm.
Hence, we're single and maybe single again and looking for someone. And so the questions should be more geared toward, instead of where do I find them, what can I learn about myself? You know, what did I do, or what was my part in how my previous relationships have gone, and maybe what was my part in them not working out?
Okay.
Like, why did I choose the wrong people? Or why was I attracted to a person with a certain, pattern or dynamic in their life, right? If we don't ask those deeper questions, if we don't look in the mirror and question ourselves, what do I need to learn? How do I need to grow? What do I need to do to be a better partner? If we don't do that, then of course we'll continue to meet people, but our love lives will go more like in the direction of Groundhog Day. It'll just be the same thing over and over again, right? So this book came about where I said, okay, so because I preach that, you're not asking the right question. Well, then what are the right questions, right? So the idea formatted in my head, quantum questions. I actually did some podcasts with that title, maybe 2.5 years ago.
Oh, interesting.
And I like that little quantum question thing. I like how that sounded. And of course I knew what the subtitle would be, asking yourself questions that would lead to a healthy relationship. But the incubation period, it's like, okay, I know I'm writing this book at some point, but I'm not ready. I know I can just feel it in my body. This is not the time to start writing it. So I spent about 18 months just sitting with the title and wondering about what questions would go in it, how many questions, and mulling it over. And I mean, seriously, mulling it, like driving down the street, and instead of having the radio on, I'm just mulling over the questions, like which question and how many questions, and what would I say about that question, and how many chapters would I devote that? So I'm just tinkering in my mind. And maybe every once in a while I would get my notes app on my phone and I would speak into my phone and, say something that I was thinking of that I thought would be good. Maybe a question popped up in my head, or a couple of ways I would deal with the question in the book. And I would make some notes so I wouldn't forget. But it's like 18 months of just stirring around with it. I'd wake up at 3 o'clock in the morning, get an idea, and I would, jot it down, or again, talk into my phone or something. So after it percolates in me, this is my process in writing. After I've just been with it and milked it over, at the end of that 18 months, the book is outlined completely in my head. I know there's going to be 7 questions, and I know that I'm going to probably do about 3 chapters on each one. And I know kind of what each chapter is going to be about, right? And I might have even written out the outline. But once I got that, once I kind of know what the book's about,
Yeah.
and I've mulled it over, I sort of wait for when the universe says it's time to write.
That's kind of like you have to fill out the moment when it's like, okay, it's go time, and just versus just like, I have my own agenda and I got to put a book out by like the 18th. So it's got to be written. Just like you get that feeling for it. Yeah.
Right. After I wrote my 3rd book, I had no plans of writing another book. People ask me, you to write another book, Roy? I'm like, no, I don't think so. Unless the universe just seems to tell me it's time to write another book.
Yeah.
And they've been about 5 years apart for some unknown reason. The book, I think, kind of follows an inside out approach. So the first few questions are really the deepest spiritual exploration of kind of who we are as people. And then The last couple questions are really practical, down in the dirt. Kind of this is the way you act and behave and show up. So it turned out to be, I thought, a nice flow from question number 1 to question number 7. From let's start in the spiritual deep end of the pool. And once we lay that foundation, like building a house, once we lay that foundation, now we can construct something and build something that, can really last and really work.
I'd love to get into get into the various questions that you talk about in this book. So the first question was, who am I? Which I thought was like, it's such a huge question, but like, how do you guide people to begin even unpacking that without getting them overwhelmed about that?
The interesting thing about the question, who am I? And I think I write this in the very first chapter about that it seems out of place. It seems like, okay, this book is about sort of how to find a life partner. What in the world is a question like, who am I, doing in the book? And why is it the very first question? So I kind of felt like I needed to let the reader know why a spiritual question about our true nature is so important. And the way I explain it is that the more that we really know who we are, the more we're able to connect with other people in a healthy way. Like if our relationship or understanding of ourselves is sort of dysfunctional, then it's going to be really difficult to make something healthy with another person. Because we always seem to relate with other people as kind of a reflection of how we sort of see ourselves, right? Like if we don't love ourselves, it's impossible to love somebody else.
So true.
So I find in my own life that what really has sabotaged me, because I mean, the listener should know that I have had a real terrible relationship history. I mean, I've been married 17 years now and it's great. Right. But before that, I was married for 19 years and it was really a platonic relationship. And then I went through a divorce and rebounded into another relationship, got engaged. She dumped me 6 months before the wedding. That put me in a year-long midlife crisis. I joined about 4 different dating sites to just try to find someone new because I was in so much pain and so lonely. And I created so much drama doing all that stuff. So, I became a relationship coach because at first I just wanted to figure out why my love life sucked so bad. And then once I sort of figured that out, I was like, oh man, I think what I learned is pretty transferable. So maybe I ought to take what I've learned and maybe share it with others. So I kind of became a coach just to help other people learn kind of what I learned. And so, that background, this question, who am I? It made sense because my love life was so bad because I would take things personal. I mean, I would get triggered and I would take things personally about what a woman said or did or how something went in the dating scene, if I got ghosted or gaslighted or some online nonsense. I had no way of being with other people without making it be about me, without having my feelings get hurt, without thinking that everything you're doing is somehow a reflection on me. And with my terrible relationship history, it was almost impossible for me to let go of my past because our past affects us in certain ways that it starts to form an identity of, I'm the one who's been cheated on. I'm the one who attracts people that are commitment phobic. I'm the one who, whatever, right? And so not knowing who we truly are makes letting go of the past and ending drama and not taking things personally literally impossible. But the more you really kind of get at your true nature of really who you're made to be and who you truly are, well, the past becomes powerless. Drama and conflict largely disappear from your life because you just don't take things personally, because you don't take yourself as seriously, right? Like we get so defensive in relationships, right? I have to
Really.
defend my identity. I have to defend who I think I am. How dare you treat me that way? But when you get to know who you truly are, you really discover there's nothing to defend here. The whole ego structure is sort of an illusion. It's just a thought generated idea or story of who I see myself as. So the first question is just helping you discover your true nature so that you have a foundation of like an ability to relate with people, to interact in the world and not take things personally and not get into drama and let go of the past and really be available to connect with someone.
It's interesting you mentioned the past self, because the second question talks about asking yourself what's here now.
Right.
So why is having present moment awareness so important in your relationships and in dating in particular?
I simply call the ability to be present is the secret sauce of a relationship. I mean, your ability to be in the moment, not lost in thoughts of the past, not lost in the future, but to be with someone, even on the practical level of being a good listener, right? And being able to connect. It's difficult to be authentic when you're lost in your mind, ruminating about the past or being anxious about the future, right? But the second question, what's here now, is a question that makes you dial into your unarguable inner experience. Like I call it, what's going on in Royville? Like what's real for me? So if I'm on a date or I'm talking to my wife or I'm on a podcast with you, if I'm asking myself in my head, what's here now? What's here now? Right? It keeps me from daydreaming or mulling over the past. And it makes me tune into the reality of the moment. And if I'm tuned into what's really happening inside of me, what my thoughts are, what my emotions are, what I want, well, then I can be present with you in a relationship. I can be real, right? Most of us long for an authentic, transparent, real relationship with someone, where there's no withholding, there's no manipulating, there's no image managing. There's just an authentic connection. I call it dating naked, where, there's no secrets. There's no pretense. There's nothing covered up. Nobody's playing games, right? Everybody longs for a relationship where you're not playing games. Well, the only way you're not playing games is if you're able to be real about what's happening in your body in this moment. Otherwise, you're just playing games. So the question, what's here now, sort of takes you out of your head and it helps you get in touch with, well, this is what I really feel right now.
Right.
Or these are the thoughts I'm having. This is what I want, or these are the questions I have. So then you're on a date or you're in a relationship and you're able then to be relating authentically with someone and not from a persona or not from trying to control how you see me and I want to act a certain way so you like me and all the games that we play in relationships. So the first question is getting to know who you truly are, which grounds you to relate authentically. And the second question is what's here now, which gets you in touch with the secret sauce of a relationship, which is the reality of my inner experience that I can share with you. And I can be with your inner experience. And
Right.
those two things lay the foundation for something really magical to happen between people.
And it's also nice because you're able to react to like what's actually going on in front of you versus like, well, something's happening in front of me, but I'm going to react to this based on past incidences with
Correct.
other people or the way I used to be that's no longer relevant.
Right. Right. Or when you're asking yourself what's here now, you would notice, oh, I'm reacting to something that happened in the past right now. Like I'm feeling a little scared because something you said reminded me of my
Yeah.
ex-husband. So I'm aware of what's happening. And when I'm aware of what's happening, I can report it. I can deal with it. But what happens for most of us when we're not present, we just get taken over by our minds, by our stories, by our triggers, and we just get reactive. We just, something happens, it's fight or flight. And we're not even consciously choosing. We're just reacting from our past pain, from our beliefs about relationships. And we're not able to kind of cut through that and say, wait a minute, right now I feel scared. And I don't want to react the way I'm tempted to, which is to excuse myself and go to the bathroom and then walk out the door and never see you again. I rather would stay here and tell you why I'm scared, and perhaps we could talk about that, right? Then something really different can happen because you're breaking your patterns.
Right.
Right.
This next question, I really like this one. It's very thought provoking, but the question is, what is the real reason I want a relationship?
Yeah.
Now, why is that so important to ask? And more importantly, what are some surprising or uncomfortable truths that people discover when asking that question?
This is the question that begins to challenge you to really look at your true motivations. So that's why the question, it doesn't say, why do you want a relationship? It says, what's the real reason you want it? So I'm sort of intimating that you have a reason you want a relationship, and then there's the real reason you want a relationship. Okay. And I maintain that until you get at your real motivation, it will stand between you and a healthy relationship. You have to really know what's really going on inside of you. Because most of us say, why do you want a relationship in the first place? Most of us would say something like, well, I want someone to share my life with. I want a companion. I want, their support and to give my support. And I want someone to just enjoy living with and going through the challenges of life together. And I don't doubt that that's true. I certainly want that with my wife, and I have that with my wife. But what I discovered about myself, and I found this to be true in every single person I've talked to, is underneath those surface reasons, there's a deeper reason. And it's tied to this. If we are self-aware, we know that, first of all, that we exist, right? If I said, Harry, are you in there? And you go, yeah, I'm here. I'm an aware being. And I say, so we're in here. If we ask ourselves, Roy, how am I doing in here? Usually, how am I doing? And if we're honest, something's usually bothering us. There is usually some sort of not okay feeling. Now, I don't mean we're suicidal. I do not mean we're freaking out and losing our minds and we're clinically depressed and can't get out of bed. I'm not saying it's that bad. It could be that bad, but it's usually not. What I'm saying is that most of us, if we're honest, someone were to say, so really, Roy, how are you? I might say, well, if I'm going to be honest, I'm a little lonely, or I could be a little insecure. Sometimes I feel like I'm not good enough, or I'm unlovable, or maybe I'm never going to meet someone and I'm scared about that. Or I feel a little vulnerable, or I feel bored, or undesirable, something like that, right? If we get honest with ourselves and we say, what's it like to be you? Usually something's bothering us, right? We have a mind that's, imagining, well, what if this happens and what if that happens? We're usually worried about something. We're concerned about losing our job, or, what our friends might be saying about us, right? So if we're honest, when we look inside, we'd recognize that we've got some sort of not okay feeling that is very familiar to us. Okay. Now, this not okay feeling for me, and I write about it in the book, mine is this feeling of not being desirable, especially in relationship to women in relationships, is I always felt like I was just not desirable. Okay.
Okay.
Now, depending on what a person's is, this feeling is so intolerable that it's got to be dealt with. I say in the book, your life purpose, whether you know it or not, is to fix that not okay feeling. You're whatever you're wearing, whatever you do, the people you hang out with, the decisions you make are all about fixing your not okay feeling. This is going to make me feel more alive. This is going to make me feel like, I'm good enough, or I'm lovable, or, whatever it might be. This is going to make me feel desirable or something, right? So we begin to have this moment of awareness that I'm not so okay in here. And my life is devoted to fixing this not okay feeling. And for people reading a book about relationships, what they'll find is their favorite and what they believe the best strategy for fixing that not okay feeling is to find the right partner. So if my not okay feeling is, I've always felt abandoned. It's always felt like I wasn't wanted. Maybe you have a story of alcoholic parents, or your father left the family when you were really young, and you've just always had kind of an abandonment wound. That's always there in you. You might be a happy person, you might have a lot of friends and stuff like that, but if you get real, what's it like inside? I have this not okay feeling. I feel disconnected. I feel alone. I feel abandoned. And that feeling is so intolerable, it's got to get fixed.
Mm.
So what's the real reason you want a relationship? To fix my abandonment wound. So now I want to find a partner, because I believe if I find the right partner, I won't feel abandoned anymore. And that sounds like a very logical thing to do, except life partners are lousy life sources. Men and women are lousy at fixing each other's not okay feeling. See, if I feel undesirable, one of the things I wanted to find a woman who was very sexually, interested, very sexual, because if she wanted me, I felt desirable, right? But now I'm in a relationship. The real reason I want a relationship is to find a woman who makes me feel desirable by having sex with me all the time. Now that puts an enormous amount of pressure on this woman.
Yeah.
Because I'm asking her to fix something that even if she wanted to fix it, she wouldn't be able to. She's just a girl. Right? So we begin to discover that we want a relationship to do something for us that it was never designed to do. Your life partner was never designed to meet your emotional needs. It was never designed to make you feel good enough or lovable or wanted, right? It was never designed to make you feel desirable, to take away an abandonment feeling. It's just your partner will never be adequate to do that in a consistent, reliable way. And yet, that's why we seek a relationship. But until you really get at that's why I'm looking for a relationship. See, once I began to see that I had an issue between me and my mother, where I didn't feel wanted and connected to my mother. So I came into my teenage years, my adult years, wanting to be desired by a feminine creature. It would heal me in some way, right? So the real reason I wanted a woman was for her to make me feel desirable. The minute I saw that, it's like, oh, no wonder why my marriage went the way it did. My ex-wife could never desire me enough. I had women, Harry, tell me, Roy, it's never enough for you. We could have sex twice a day, and it's not enough for you. And I used to argue about that.
Yeah.
And it was true, right? It was a bottomless pit that I kept thinking a woman can fix this. She can fill this, right? She can fill the void, fix the problem, finish the story, help me find an identity as a desirable man, right? And then I began to see why all my relationships were so bad. I was looking for a woman to be a life source. So at that point, I needed to stop and say, all right, that's not a woman's job. She can't do it. She's not supposed to do it. This is my job. I got to deal with my wound. I've got to deal with my feeling undesirable. That's a me job. That's a God job. That's a life job, whatever you want to call it.
Right.
I can't put that on a relationship. It's too much pressure she'll fail, then I'll get mad at her. Where does drama come from? When you're failing to meet my emotional needs. Harry, people think that the purpose of a relationship is to find someone who will meet our emotional needs. And oh my God, no, it's not. But as long as you think that, you're going to get in drama and disappointment because you're going to find out that your partner is just a human and they're not going to meet your needs, not sufficiently and not adequately and not consistently. And then you're going to get mad at them. You're not here for me. You're not being there for me. Right? And so you got to get at this underlying reason, this not okay feeling that you think a relationship is going to fix. And then you need to fix that yourself. And so once I dealt with that, now I could be with a woman without expectation, without a subtle kind of demand that she be a certain way. Right? And so it unlocks the ability to relate in a healthy way because now I'm not asking my woman to be my life source, to heal me in some way. And so I just say to the people listening, if you don't think that you're doing that, you're just not looking closely enough. It's true of you.
It's so true. And I think also like the whole narrative, like, oh, I'm trying to find somebody that completes me. That's also really ruined this idea of like, no, you got to come to them as a already whole, self-sufficient person. It's two wholes coming together to make a bigger one, not like, oh, I can only do for so much and I need this person to connect with me emotionally so I feel better about myself. It's like, that's not their job.
Yeah.
And so many relationships end up failing for that and people get upset, but it's like, no, you got to do your own work. And you got to realize that the relationship is there to complement your life, not to be your whole life.
Correct. That you complete me mindset. The old Jerry Maguire movie. I love the movie, but that line is crap. But that's exactly what I'm saying, is that we feel incomplete in some way. We have a not okay feeling on the inside. And we think if we find the right partner, which is why we have a list, by the way, we create a list of these qualities because we don't need just any partner. That we need a partner with specific qualities, because if they have those qualities, we think that's the person that can fix this not okay feeling. Right? So that's the problem with making a list of qualities you want. Your list is describing that you have the mindset that my partner is supposed to meet my emotional needs. So I got to find the right partner. And then I got to hold them to doing their job, in a sense. Right?
Yeah.
Your job is to complete me. And so, just like you said, that will, all I'll say is that just never works. If it worked, it'd be fine. But it just doesn't work. I mean, it's our job to complete ourselves. And that doesn't mean that we can't be in a relationship if we're not complete. It's just that both people know, okay, I got some stuff to work on in my life. And the other person's, I got some stuff to work on in my life. Why don't let's be together, not to work on each other, but to have an atmosphere where we work on ourselves together.
Yeah.
Like, because most relationships, we get together and then we work on each other. I want to make you into the man or woman I need you to be so that I feel safe, or I feel approved of, or I feel loved, or I feel desirable, whatever it is. And we try to change each other, coerce each other, and, make each other, like mold each other so that we have a partner that's just right for us. And it just doesn't work.
And that mindset tends to keep people, they get into a relationship, they have that mindset, and then they end up losing people. So they constantly remain single because they can't keep a person around long-term that's not meeting their expectations. And that actually leads to the next question, which is, why am I single? So obviously, we're clearly from the standpoint of like, you analyze and do your own work and think about these things. But like, how do people usually answer that question? And then how does your framework push them to think about it deeper?
Yeah. The fourth question is, why am I single? Because I use like a medical analogy, right? When you're sick, you need to get the correct diagnosis, right? If you're sick and you go to the doctor and they misdiagnose you, that can be disastrous, right? I mean, either they'll give you the wrong treatment, the wrong medication, and you certainly won't get better and you might get worse. We're single. And even though it's not a problem, a lot of people feel it is. So it's important to know what's the correct diagnosis? Like, why am I single? Because if I misdiagnose the problem, then it won't get fixed because I'll be going in the wrong direction. So the way most people answer that question is that, why am I single? Well, I just haven't met the right person yet. They answer it by, well, I just haven't gotten lucky. Fate, the stars have not aligned. It's a numbers game. I just haven't met the right person yet.
All in God's timing. Yeah.
Right. Most people think it's like that old Reese's peanut butter cup commercial from 30 years ago, where the girl's walking down the street with chocolate and the guy's walking down the street peanut butter, and they come around a corner, they bump into each other, and the chocolate gets on the peanut butter and vice versa, and they taste it like, oh my God, we're perfect together. That's how people think their relationships are. I'm just going to bump into someone and we're going to be great together. So the reason I'm single is because that hasn't happened yet. And I'm like, that's a misdiagnosis. You're not single because you haven't gotten lucky. You're single because there is something happening in you unconsciously that you're not aware of. For some reason, you're keeping yourself single. You're sabotaging yourself. You're blocking it for some reason that you don't know. It would be like a person is in a car and they want the car to go from point A to point B, just like you want your love life to go from point A to point B. So they're in the car, they're hitting the gas pedal, and the car's making noise, just like people make a lot of noise. I want to find a partner. I want to find a partner, right? So they're hitting the gas. The car's not moving anywhere. And they're like, why isn't my car going? Why am I not going from point A to point B? And I look over at them and say, well, because you got your other foot on the brake. The car won't move if you have a foot on the brake. You could try it. It'll make a lot of noise, but it won't go anywhere, right? That's how it's happening in us. We say we want to find a partner, and we really do, but there's something in us that we're not aware of that's got a foot on the brake. No, I don't. No, I don't, right? I'm going to get hurt. I'm going to get cheated on. I'm going to get rejected. I give a bunch of reasons in the book on reasons why we won't allow ourselves to get into a relationship, that we're blocking it somehow. We're sabotaging ourselves, and somehow we have some limiting belief. I call them the killer bees. We have some sort of baggage. We have some sort of belief. We have some sort of blind spot, or we got some sort of barrier. There's something going on in us that we're not really aware of, and that is keeping you from connecting with someone. So it's not that you haven't gotten lucky yet. You are doing it to yourself, but you just don't know how. So that question leads you into some real self-exploration. Like, what are the downsides to being in a relationship? Why would it be better for me to be single? Or what do I fear would happen if I was in a relationship, right? So it's these kind of sub-questions that open up the door to how you have your foot on the brake. And then once you know why and how your foot is on the brake, we can deal with that easily. But when it's unconscious, when you don't know you're doing it, you don't know you're doing it. All you know is
you gotta do a lot.
My love life isn't going anywhere.
You got to do a lot of conscious work to get to that point too. So it's like, and it's like as the questions go on, they kind of segue into each other. Cause then from there, it's like, once you figure out, okay, why am I single? Then it's the next question was, what is standing in the way of my ability to be close? Now, what are some reasons that you've seen, maybe your clients or yourself, like what were the intimacy blockers that you've seen that people realized, oh, this is what's standing in my way?
Yeah. I just find that to be such a great question. What is standing in the way of my ability to be close, right? Because it turns it around from I'm single because I haven't met someone yet to no, there's something standing in the way. And, I give a number of examples in the book. The one that I think is the most fun to talk about is I share a story from a client many years ago who was in a coaching session with me, and we were just kind of chit-chatting for a moment, and she was telling me how when she was about 14, her parents went through a divorce. Okay. Now, this woman was in her early 40s, beautiful woman, Canadian, beautiful black woman. Just like a movie star looking. Really hot. Okay. To be honest. Right. And she's never been in a relationship. Right. She's dated a bunch, but nothing's ever gone anywhere. After about 4 or 5 months, they would always fall apart for her. Okay. So we're just chit chatting. And she tells me when she was 14, her parents went through a horrible divorce. They were yelling and screaming. She remembers her dad yelling, her mom crying, and it was just a nightmare. And she just casually mentioned to me, she said, I remember back then, clear as day, sitting in my room saying, man, I am never going to let that happen to me. And then she just went on with some other story about living in Canada. And I said, whoa, girl, back up.
Yeah, back that up.
What did you say? You said you would never let that happen to you? Yeah. I said, well, what's the best way to never go through a divorce? And there was silence on the phone. It finally hit her. The best way is to never let a relationship go past 4 or 5 months. Then if I never let a man get that close, I can never get that hurt. And she saw it. She wasn't single because she hasn't met the right guy yet. She wouldn't let herself because she was so afraid of being hurt, of going through a horrible breakup. So then we were able to deal with that. Let's talk about that fear. All right. Is there a way to face that? Is there a way to let that go? Is there a way to recognize it could happen, but do you want to let that possibility keep you from the possible joy of a wonderful relationship? So we worked through that. She's been with the same guy now for, I think it's about 11 years. Okay?
Oh, nice.
Right. So that was what was keeping her from being close. It was this kind of an unconscious, I don't want to get my heart broken and go through some horrible divorce. And so best way to do that is just get disinterested in men after about 4 or 5 months. That was her pattern. She would just kind of get bored with them. Say, the guy's great. He has a great job. He's a great guy. Treats me wonderful. But I just kind of get bored after a few months.
Yeah. Some people are like unaware that they do that. Cause I remember in my own journey, like my dad died when I was 9, and it took me until like my mid-20s to realize part of my trouble was that I started recognizing women liked me, and I would purposely unintentionally do things to self-sabotage it. And then I realized, oh, it's like I'm able to control when they go away, because when I was young, I couldn't do that with my dad and it hurt. So if I can at least control the hurt, even if I want a relationship, if they're going to leave at some point anyway, I'd rather cause that than have it just be a surprise. It's like, oh, snap, I got to stop that. Like, how do people do that work to like actually analyze that and realize that they're doing that, you know?
Right. Right. And that's why I say asking yourself the right questions instead of where do I go on Saturday to meet someone? You see, if she asked that question, she was so beautiful. She could find a guy anytime she wanted. But because she wasn't aware of what was standing in the way of her ability to be close, no matter what guy she found, it would never go anywhere. Right? So you got to ask yourself, these tougher questions. These are not easy questions to ask. In fact, in the introduction of the book, I say, this is not going to be a fun book to read. This is not a John Grisham novel. You're not going to enjoy this. This is going to be difficult, but it's going to unlock things to change the entire course. It's going to give you a quantum leap in your love life if you're willing to deal with these questions in an honest way.
We got a couple questions left here. The next question, the sixth question is, you mentioned something called your relationship MO. What is that?
Right.
How to identify what it is and why is it important?
How are you going to do a relationship? What's your relationship MO, right? Your modus operandi. How are you going to operate, right? And so in those chapters, I lay out what I consider to be the conventional method of operation. I list 10 ways the conventional wisdom says this is how you relate. And then across from them, I juxtapose them with what I call the 10 commitments of conscious, mindful dating. And they're lined up with each other, right? There's some graphics in the book. And so you got the conventional wisdom and the conscious wisdom. And these chapters simply ask you, which one do you want to do? And I know you've been doing the conventional kind because everybody does. And it's not that they're wrong. It's just that they lead to dysfunctional relationships. They don't work, right? The conscious relationship principles have been tried for thousands of years, and they've been proven to work, right? So I'm asking people to take a look at the ways that you're communicating. There's conventional ways of communicating and conscious ways. There are conventional ways of dealing with your emotions and your partner's emotions, and then there are conscious ways, right? And so I go through a bunch of these big topics and say, what's your MO going to be? And if you align yourself with these conscious commitments, you are setting yourself up to relate in a way that's going to work and it's going to last. Yeah.
Nice. It's a great way to be able to set people up for success in a relationship by having because I always believe a man without a plan is going to fail. So it's always good to know your objectives so you can also, figure out how to steer the relationship in the right direction.
Right. Like for instance, there's always issues come up in a relationship. So the conventional way of dealing with problems is to decide whose fault is it, to find blame. The conscious way is not to blame, is to take responsibility, saying, what did I do to create this situation? What can I do to change it? What am I missing about myself that's leading to this? So in a conscious relationship, you don't blame each other. And there's no finger pointing. There's simply looking in the mirror saying, what am I doing to set this up? And what can I do to make a change so that we resolve this problem once and for all, right? Blaming and claiming. Two very different ways of dealing with a problem or a challenge.
And then finally, the last question is, this is really interesting. What would I do if I wasn't scared? Now that feels like a game changer question. How often is fear the thing that keeps people single? And then what kind of fears do you see that most people oftentimes have?
Most of us are living according to fear. Fear is what's guiding our lives. And so when you get really practical, you've done all this work on yourself. You know who you are, right? You know what your real motivation in a relationship is. You know what's standing in the way of your ability to be close. You've decided you're going to relate in healthy, conscious ways. And then you got to come down to, okay, so today, what would I do if I wasn't scared? Well, maybe I'd walk up to that person and say, hello, my name is Roy. Or maybe I would actually tell the truth about how I'm feeling. Or maybe I would, take responsibility for a problem in a relationship because I'm not afraid of looking bad. And you begin to notice just how much fear runs your life, how it dictates what you do and don't do, what you say, what you don't say. We don't take risks. We don't risk being vulnerable. We don't risk being really honest. We don't ask for what we want. We're afraid of being misunderstood or people thinking we're needy or something. When you really look at yourself, you'll be like, you know what? Behind most of my life, fear is the one that's controlling how I show up. So now that I've done all this work, okay, what would I do if I wasn't afraid? You don't have to do anything about it, but it's good to know, if I wasn't afraid, I would deal with my mother like this. If I wasn't afraid, I would handle my children like this. If I wasn't afraid, I would go into my boss's office and I would say, if I wasn't afraid, I'd walk over there to that person and I would say, you know what? I've been wanting to meet you all night. I have been terrified to walk over here and say hello for some reason, but screw that. Even though I'm scared of what you might say to me, my name is Roy and I would like to get to know you. It's liberating and terrifying to think of.
Well, like I said, I found the 7 questions posed with this book to be fascinating. And for those that are watching this and they're interested in getting the book, where can they find the book?
Well, of course, everywhere else in Amazon, right? It's paperback, it's ebook, it's audio. So all the versions there, like everything else in the world, you find it on Amazon.
And you guys can also find it at the link. I'll put it down in the link below in the description so you can click on it and check out his book. Thank you so much for coming on the show and talking to us about it. Hope you have much luck and success with the book, because I think it's like the questions are fascinating. It's very eye-opening, and we appreciate you for putting out content like this.
Thank you, Harry. I appreciate that very much.
No problem, guys. For the rest of you guys, like I said, go in the description to check out his book. The book is Quantum Questions: How Answering 7 Radical Questions Leads to Attracting a Healthy, Lasting, Intimate Relationship. Obviously, you can subscribe to this channel and like this video, and we will catch you guys on the next one. Hey there. Thanks for tuning in to Harry Dating Convos. Don't forget to visit HarryWilmington.com to download my free ebook, Texting Women Like a Boss. And while you're there, if you're ready to take things to the next level with your dating life, check out the Get Girls Academy membership program for exclusive strategies and live coaching. Go to HarryWilmington.com to learn more and join today. Lastly, if you've got a question you'd like answered on one of these shows, leave a comment below or write me at HarryWilmington@gmail.com. I'll catch you on the next one. Peace.